This is a very quick update video of the changes that's happened since the last update video. So in the last update video I was working on the vector graphics. This feature is fairly complete now and has been tested to some degree and seems to be able to import and export graphics properly. Also we're able to export those and build those in DAD-ready as well. There's one tiny wrinkle, which is the Commodore 64. When the DAD files were recovered, there was no English interpreter found in those files. So there isn't actually an English interpreter that I know of for DAD, which is able to draw the vector graphics. So currently when we export for the Commodore 64, it's going to use the Spanish interpreter for both the English and Spanish adventures. This will mean the vocabulary order won't work quite correctly. Hopefully at some point we'll find some way to remedy that situation. The MSX is the graphics editor that I've been working on the most since the last video. Largely because there never was an MSX vector graphics editor. There was the Spectrum one, and the workflow always used to be you created the vector graphics in the Spectrum one, then you converted those to the Commodore, the Amstrad and the MSX. The Commodore one and the Amstrad one, you could then use the editors for those two to tidy up your images where the conversions haven't worked quite correctly, or if you didn't convert over the colors, you could go and add the colors in later on. The MSX one did a kind of, because the screen was a similar size to the Spectrum, even though the coordinate system was different, the coordinate for the Spectrum started XY at the bottom left corner, MSX started top left corner, but it used to just convert the graphics over. I think the interpreter internally flips over the coordinate system, and it would just do a kind of lookup table match of the colors for the MSX, which meant you always had colors that kind of matched the Spectrum one, but you were never able to use the full color range of the MSX palette. We can now use the full range of the palette here for your ink or your paper colors, which is a slight addition for MSX users, that they will be able to make a bunch of graphics tailored for the MSX. Obviously testing was quite difficult. Initially for the Spectrum, the Commodore and the Amstrad, I was able to export from DAD Builder back to the original drawstring editors to check whether we were exporting correctly and then make changes if we weren't. The MSX, that wasn't possible, so the only way was by exporting those graphics and then trying to play them in an MSX adventure. That was difficult because there wasn't a easy way to build the MSX adventures. The other drawstring graphics for the Spectrum, the Commodore and the Amstrad, I was able to use the DAD-ready bat files and just modify them to build with our graphics in there, and it all worked quite nicely. We had to inject our own interpreters in. The MSX, I believe that when they added the ability for the MSX to play adventures from the disk, that needed to use Maluva, and using Maluva excluded the ability to have the vector graphics. In the end, I came across a utility built by Rockasuk, or Pedro Ferdinand. The author was very helpful in providing all his notes on how the drawstring graphics worked. And he had created this utility to make an MSX cassette from DAD files. Unfortunately, this was written in Python, which I wasn't able to easily call using dadready, because dadready uses PHP or precompiled executable files, and there's no guarantee a user is going to have Python installed on their system. So I had to rewrite this in Pascal and then create an executable which would do the same type of thing. Add a few extra flags on it so that we could call this from a dadready bat file. So now when you export your zip file, if there are drawstring graphics for the NSX, that will export a tool into the tool chain, which is our version of DAD to NSX cassette, and the drawstring graphics. Having completed all of that, we're now able to export for the Spectrum, the Commodore, and the Amstrad, and the NSX. And when we do, there will be a drawstring bat file for each of those in the root file of dadready. Other change which has taken place is when we create a new adventure, we now have the option to change the viewpoint. So by default, all of the templates are in the first person. So when we go to the messages and the system messages, it says I can see, what should I do now, etc. But if we now go for new and we go second person and we create, and then we go to those system messages, says you can also see, what should you do now, what should you do next. And that works for each of the languages which are supported. So should you want to write an adventure in a different viewpoint, you don't have to go through and manually change all of those messages yourself. I think that's it for this update, and I will see you in the next update video when we have some more changes.